My father-in-law had the 15-year-old wife, and every evening she would take her old husband to the room after feeding him goat's milk, and then she would go to the room and do what he did. You will be surprised to know the reason. I was watching this injustice with teary eyes. I felt my breath hitching in my chest. I felt as if I was dreaming, a bad dream, and when I opened my eyes, this dream would end. But everyone's teary eyes made me realize that all this was true, and it was so true that at that age, we all could not look up in shame at what my father-in-law had done. Was this an age to get married? At that age, when more than half of his feet had reached the grave and he had come home after getting married, let's digest this too. But that too with a 15-year-old girl? They had not let anyone know about this marriage, and they had done all this, and my own daughter was older than this girl. Seeing this girl in the marriage ceremony, next to her old father-in-law, my heart had forgotten how to beat. I was feeling sorry for this girl. I was also a mother, and she was also a daughter. I felt bad for this innocent person. My husband was also worried about this act of his father and was sitting in the courtyard holding his head on the bed. What would he do? Like me, the same thing was probably going through his mind that just yesterday I had arranged the marriage of my elder daughter, and everyone was very happy with this relationship, and today my grandfather had arranged his own marriage. My daughter's in-laws would have taunted us and broken the relationship, and they were probably right in that. I started crying, but my father-in-law had no regrets about this foolish act. He was smiling while wearing a garland of roses as if it was his first marriage or something else. I have done a great job, and now I want to receive praise from everyone. My daughter was looking at her younger grandmother in surprise. My second son must also be 2 years older than this new grandmother. He was helplessly wondering what kind of strange relationship he had with this girl. He would now call her grandma. We were all looking at him with regret at this act of the father-in-law. I also felt like crying for the fate of his young daughter. I don't know what the parents thought. They ruined the life of their little girl, and who can be so cruel that they push their children into the well knowing everything? We were all saying something or the other, and that girl was looking at us all incomprehensibly. She was wearing a fancy red dress. Her face reflected the forgetfulness of her youth. My husband started shouting at his father, "What have you done? Are you not ashamed of ruining the life of a girl younger than your granddaughter? You didn't even think about us once. What will the world say to us? People won't let us live. You have made us all a question mark for this society." He said, "I haven't done anything wrong. This is not against the Sharia. I have married and this is my right. Stay away from my affairs, otherwise this house is in my name. I will throw you out of the house. If you have more problems than my marriage and care more about society, then get out of here with your wife and children." Hearing this, my husband was furious and furious. The house and the village lands were all in the name of my father-in-law, but my husband had been working hard since he was a young boy. He had taken care of everything. Everything was fine in my mother-in-law's life. My father-in-law was very happy with us all. We lived as a good family, but it had not even been 40 days since my mother-in-law's death that my father-in-law had also decorated his house. My father-in-law held the girl's hand and went to his room. We were worried that whatever bad reputation there might be, our daughter's relationship would be broken due to her marriage at this age, because such things are given great importance in the family and community. And in our family, this thing was considered a little more important. We lived in the village, and we also raised many livestock, cows, bulls, and goats. We milked our cows. What a storm had come to our good life. That night, no one in our house slept peacefully. No one ate. In the morning, when I opened my eyes, I could hear the sound of a goat bleeding. I was worried because my husband used to feed all the cattle only after dawn, and even then, he was not in bed. This meant that the cattle had been fed. He had never herded any cattle like this before. When I went through the yard to the animal pen, I was surprised to see this. My father-in-law's young wife had tied a small goat to one side. He was driving it, and she herself was milking the goat with great skill, and the way she moved, and the skill she had showed that she was from the village. We had never used goat's milk till today, so I found her behavior strange and bad. She was a bride for a day and then got married to an old man at such a young age. I thought she must be sitting in the room crying, but she was very satisfied, as if the marriage had taken place of her own free will. There was no sign of forgetfulness on her appearance at that time. She filled the steel bucket and stood up. She was smiling and I was looking at her in surprise, but when she saw me, she immediately left there. I kept looking at her in surprise that there was no sign of sadness on this girl's face. Then I thought she was an innocent girl. She must be hungry, so she took the milk and took it away, and what injustice had been done to her, she probably wouldn't even know. Anyway, I also didn't ask her for breakfast or water because I didn't have the courage to do so. She took a bucket of milk to her room. My father-in-law didn't come out of the room all day. Only that girl would come out of the room to cook something for herself and my father-in-law and then go to her room. She didn't talk to us herself, nor did we call her. I used to feel sorry for her, but now I was also surprised because no girl of that age can be happy with an old, sick person. But even when I looked at her face, I couldn't find any expression that would make me think that she was sad or that she had been forced into something. In fact, her movements were strange. She was getting ready like a new bride. She was wearing a new outfit and applying makeup. Often the sounds of laughter and talking started coming from my father-in-law's room. In fact, often late at night, there were whispers. We were all surprised to hear this, and I even felt embarrassed. We all looked away from each other. There were young children in the house, and they must have heard and seen all this, but once I found it hard to believe what my eyes saw. That night, I woke up at night because of thirst. I usually kept water in the room to drink, but today, I forgot. When I came to the yard to drink water, I started hearing the sounds of a goat bleating. I didn't pay much attention because most animals wake up at night. I poured water from a clay pot into a glass, but as soon as I started drinking water, I started hearing the sound of bangles clinking from this enclosure-like room. Who could be there at that time? My heart was a little uneasy because my daughter loved bangles very much, and my new mother-in-law also wore bangles. I kept a glass filled with water right there on the pot and started moving towards the animal enclosure. I secretly saw that my 15-year-old mother-in-law was milking a goat. I was surprised that why was she milking a goat at this time of night? What was she doing? And I was also getting angry that she used to take all the milk from the goats, which left the goat kids hungry. Anyway, I went behind and hid in a corner. When the bucket was full, the girl stood up and took the bucket and went to her room. I was wondering what she had done with such a big bucket of milk. I slowly reached my father-in-law's room with my feet pressed against the wall. There was a window right next to the room. She had opened the window sash a little. Maybe she had opened it herself. I peeked through it and was dizzy. She put the bucket on my father-in-law's face and forced him to drink it. After that, I was shocked to see what she did to my father-in-law. I thought she was a young girl, but she was... My heart had forgotten how to beat. I had turned back. I was very unwell. By the time I reached my room, I was drenched in sweat. I had forgotten why I had woken up. I sat down on my bed. My breathing was bad. I had not slept peacefully all night, but I could not tell anyone anything. The next day, I saw that the girl was milking the goat again early in the morning. Today, after a long time, my father-in-law came out of the room. His health had deteriorated even more. He seemed weaker than before, but he was very happy. He did not talk to us or drink anything. We said something to him. I was just making breakfast when the door of our house was knocked loudly. I asked who it was. My daughter's mother-in-law and father-in-law had come. Hearing their voices, my heart was pounding. My husband was also having breakfast. He was startled when he heard the sound of Samadhi from outside, because their arrival so early in the morning was not a good omen. My son had opened the door. They came in very angry. I was making parathas. I will leave everything and stand up and sit her on the bed. I said, "Sister, how did you forget the way to our house so early?" She started staring at me angrily at my words. She said, "I had heard some news about your house that I had to come so early." I looked away as if it were my fault. We had become guilty even though we were not guilty. To change the subject, I said to my son, "Amjad, go and get 2 cold 7-Ups from the shop in Nakarwala. My sister and brother have come." My tone was welcoming and dripping with spiciness. I sent my son to get a bottle and then said to my daughter's mother-in-law, "You can't go without breakfast. I am already making breakfast. Let's eat together." Now, this woman had frowned at my words. Before she could say anything, that girl also came out of the room. At that time, she came out wearing a fancy dress and makeup. My Samdan's face was swollen after seeing her. Then she said, "If your elders had to feed you these flowers," my husband was upset after hearing this and said, "We are worried why my father did this. But look, brother, what is our fault and that of our daughter in this? You can't punish my daughter for what my father did, can you?" My husband was saying in a pleading tone. My daughter's father-in-law said, "Oh, it's not about fault, Brother Rashid. It's about respect." Now, where have people gone? How did they make a son-in-law relationship with people, where instead of praying to Allah, Babaji married a girl who was even younger than his granddaughter? We are family and community people. We have to face people. The same thing that we were afraid of had happened. My father-in-law had also returned from outside and sat here. After hearing his words, my father-in-law said, "It's my life, and I want you to do whatever you want. What is the problem with the villagers and community?" My father-in-law spoke in a loud voice in anger. His whole being started shaking. He was already coughing from shouting. Anyway, after begging for a cold bottle and a full breakfast and holding his feet, my daughter's father-in-law decided not to break the relationship on the condition that the daughter be given a cow as dowry. My husband agreed because at that time there was no other way. She had already become very infamous because of her father-in-law. But while leaving, my daughter's mother-in-law said that she would give the rest of the dowry list before the wedding. Her words made us lose our senses. My husband sat down, holding his dizzy head. On this, my father-in-law said that he would not give us anything from his property. We are very angry. We were worried about how we would pay the dowry according to their demand when another piece of news shocked us. When a month passed, my father-in-law's wife started vomiting. When the midwife came and told us the news, we were stunned. She asked, "Is she pregnant?" My father-in-law was dancing after hearing this news at that age, saying, "My heir has arrived. Now I will transfer all the property to his name." We were all stunned after hearing this. My husband had been doing all the hard work, and how could he do everything in the name of his upcoming child? I don't know why it seemed to me that all this was not possible. That day too, all I saw from the window was that this girl mixed a spoonful of milk with a whole bucket of milk and gave it to my father-in-law. After that, she turned off the light in the room. It was pitch dark in the room, so I couldn't see anything. Then, I was stunned after seeing all this. I couldn't expect all this from this young girl, but how could she get pregnant? Does goat's milk have enough power that even an old man can have children? And why would she want to have a chain of children on her feet at this age? My mind could not accept this. I had thought that I would get to the bottom of this matter. I stayed awake until night. As soon as everyone went to their rooms, I came out of my room. At that time, the girl was going to her room with milk in a bucket. When she closed the door of the room, I opened the window. This girl mixed a patty and fed my father-in-law that milk. This time, she did not turn off the light. My father-in-law fell asleep as soon as he drank that milk. After that, a boy who was 18 years old entered through the back window. I understood the whole story. I woke up my husband at that moment and brought him. Seeing all this, my husband made a noise and opened the door of that room and caught the boy too. My father-in-law was unconscious after drinking the intoxicating milk. There was a commotion in the village. The whole truth had come out. This girl had married for money and property and was in a relationship with her lover, and this love and affection. Her parents had arranged her marriage because the boy was from the same village where the girl was. When her father-in-law found out about the whole matter in the morning, he divorced her. Thus, our lives were saved from this misfortune. This story was over. But even today, when I think about this girl, my mind is amazed at how clever her mind was at such a young age, and how shameless her parents were that when their daughter's actions were discovered, they would have given the boy a few words and sent him away.